In the midst of a chaotic world, a powerful virus known as the Raven strain rapidly spreads across the globe, transforming people into mindless, flesh-craving beings. This plague begins as a whisper in the darkest corners of the internet, dismissed as nothing more than a distant rumor. But as the first cases emerge, the reality of the outbreak hits hard and fast. In the midst of all this chaos stands Ryan Carter, an ordinary man caught in the storm of an extraordinary event. A former military strategist turned civilian, Ryan's life had been simple, centered around his family and a modest job as a high school teacher. But when the news breaks of the virus spreading rapidly across the country, his world is turned upside down. As the death toll climbs, cities fall, and society begins to crumble, Ryan is forced to confront a new reality, one where humanity's very survival is at stake. On the first day of the outbreak, Ryan watches in disbelief as the government imposes martial law, closing borders and declaring nationwide curfews. Panic spreads faster than the virus itself. People take to the streets, desperate to flee, while others turn to violence in a fight for resources. As Ryan and his family scramble to secure their safety, they realize that escaping the chaos won't be as easy as simply leaving town. Ryan's wife, Claire, and their 2 children, Emma and Jacob, are all he has left in this collapsing world. Together, they make their way to the nearest safe zone, a fortified compound on the outskirts of the city. The journey is treacherous. They encounter abandoned vehicles, overturned stores, and, most terrifyingly, the undead themselves. The Raven strain doesn't just turn people into zombies, it turns them into predators, acting on instinct and overwhelming anyone in their path. As night falls on the first day of the apocalypse, the city seems eerily quiet. The streets are empty, save for the occasional abandoned vehicle or distant flicker of movement. In the darkness, Ryan's group encounters their first true test, a group of the infected, shuffling aimlessly through the desolate streets. They don't speak, don't scream, they just move. It's clear from the look in their hollow eyes that they are no longer human. Ryan's military training kicks in as he silently motions to Claire and the kids, guiding them into an alleyway where they can hide. As the undead pass by, the family holds their breath, praying that they won't be noticed. The tension is palpable. Every second feels like an eternity, and the sound of their heartbeats seems deafening in the silence. Ryan knows that they can't stay hidden for long. They need to move, to find somewhere safer. But the world has changed, and the idea of safe has taken on a whole new meaning. With the undead wandering freely and the government cracking down on any form of resistance, Ryan knows they need to be careful. Any mistake could cost them their lives. Their journey takes them to the edge of town, where they find a small group of survivors holed up in a dilapidated school building. These survivors, most of whom are civilians with no military experience, are in desperate need of help. Tensions rise as resources grow scarce, and Ryan quickly realizes that even among the living, trust is a rare commodity. He knows that in a world where the dead roam, no one can be trusted fully. Not even the people they'll meet along the way. That night, as the group settles in for a much-needed rest, Ryan can't help but think about the bigger picture. The United States, once a global superpower, is no longer a symbol of hope. The government is struggling to maintain order, and the infected grow in number every day. What started as a localized outbreak has now spiraled into a full-fledged pandemic, and the world seems on the brink of collapse. Ryan feels a growing sense of unease, the worst is still ahead of them. The survivors, though scared, are holding it together. Some of them even speak of resistance, small pockets of humanity banding together to fight back against the growing tide of undead. But Ryan's instinct tells him that the true fight for survival is just beginning, and the stakes are higher than ever. The undead may be relentless, but the true threat may lie in the choices people make as they battle not only the apocalypse but the darkness within themselves. As Ryan looks out at the blood-red sky, he knows that their journey is far from over. And as the first wave of the undead approaches their makeshift shelter, he braces himself for the horrors yet to come. The battle for survival has only just begun. The next morning brings a false sense of calm. The group has spent the night huddled together in the makeshift shelter, a rundown school building that once served as a place of learning. Now, it's their last hope for survival. As the sun rises, casting an eerie orange glow over the dilapidated walls, Ryan gathers the group to discuss their next move. The infected, or walkers, as the survivors have come to call them, are becoming more numerous every day. While they've been able to stay hidden so far, it's only a matter of time before they are discovered. Ryan's mind is a whirl of calculations. The nearby military compound was supposed to be a sanctuary, but the government's grip on the country is weakening fast. He's heard rumors of barricades being breached, of soldiers abandoning their posts. Trust in the military is quickly eroding, and now, even the law of the land is in question. With his wife Claire and the children by his side, he can't afford to take risks. The family's safety must come first, but that doesn't mean they can afford to sit idly by while the world crumbles around them. The survivors inside the school are wary. Some are armed, but most are not. The tension is palpable, a constant undercurrent to the air they breathe. Everyone has their own personal reasons for clinging to life, and not all of them are clear. Some are desperate for safety, others just want to survive, and a few have started whispering about what comes next, about rebuilding, about retaking what was lost. But Ryan knows better. The only thing that matters right now is survival. As the group prepares to leave, Claire pulls him aside. Her face is drawn, and her voice is low, barely audible over the din of the others getting ready. "Ryan, are you sure we should leave? Maybe we should wait until we know more. The school is safe for now." Ryan shakes his head, his expression grim. "The longer we stay in one place, the more vulnerable we become. We can't afford to wait." But Claire isn't convinced. "We don't know what's out there. We don't know who else might be. We don't have time to second-guess ourselves anymore, Claire. The world is changing, and it's changing fast. If we want to survive, we need to be ready to move, and move quickly." The harsh reality of the situation weighs heavily on both of them. But Claire, seeing the determination in Ryan's eyes, nods reluctantly. They gather their things, double-checking their weapons and supplies. The children, Emma and Jacob, are quiet, too quiet. Emma, the older of the two, tries to appear brave, but her eyes betray the fear she feels. Jacob, still too young to fully understand the danger they're in, clings to his mother's side, his small hand trembling. With no time to waste, the group heads out, cautiously making their way through the streets of what was once a bustling city. The world they knew is gone, replaced by a haunting silence. The sounds of everyday life, cars honking, people talking, music playing, have been replaced by an eerie stillness. The only sounds that break the silence are the distant groans of the undead and the scurrying of rats in the alleyways. Ryan keeps his eyes sharp, his senses heightened. Every rustle in the distance, every shadow, every strange movement is a potential threat. His training kicks in, and he motions for the group to stay low as they make their way through the city's abandoned streets. The infected have become bolder, more aggressive. Where once they shuffled aimlessly, now they move with purpose, hunting for the living with a relentless drive. The group comes across a barricade, a line of abandoned cars and makeshift barriers blocking the road ahead. It's an obvious sign of resistance, a small, determined effort by the survivors who still hold out hope. But it's also a warning. The area ahead is too dangerous to pass through without attracting attention. Ryan scans the barricade for signs of life, but there's no movement. He can't shake the feeling that something is off. Suddenly, a loud crash echoes through the street. The sound of metal against concrete, followed by an eerie silence. Ryan's heart skips a beat. He signals for the group to stop and crouch behind cover. The tension is unbearable. The walkers, drawn by the noise, are closing in, their guttural moans growing louder by the second. They need to move, and fast. Ryan's mind races as he tries to figure out a way to get past the barricade without drawing attention. He spots a narrow alley to the left, barely wide enough to fit the group through. It's risky, but it might be their only chance. "Follow me," he whispers. He leads the group into the alley, the weight of his decision heavy on his shoulders. The alley is dark, littered with debris and the remnants of a world that has long since passed. They move as quietly as possible, every footstep muffled by the broken pavement. But as they near the end of the alley, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echo from the other side. The walkers are closing in, and Ryan realizes that there's no way to avoid them. The family must confront the undead head-on if they're going to make it out alive. And in this new world, survival depends on one thing: courage. "You said." The alley is narrow, the walls close in as Ryan leads his family and the survivors down the darkened path. Every step feels heavier than the last, as the tension grows. The sound of footsteps, growing closer, grows louder in their ears. Ryan's mind is a whirlwind of calculations. The undead are getting closer, and there's no way to outrun them. The alley ahead leads to a dead end. There's no way out except through the walkers. Ryan's breath quickens as he turns to face his family. Claire's face is pale, the weight of their situation settling in. Emma, usually the brave one, clings to her mother, her small body trembling in fear. Jacob, wide-eyed, stares up at his father, unsure of what's happening. "Dad, what do we do?" Emma whispers, her voice cracking. Ryan looks around, his eyes darting from one possible escape route to the next, but there's nothing. The walls of the alley close them in. There's only one choice left. "Stay close, all of you," he says in a low, steady voice. His hand moves instinctively to his rifle, his fingers tightening around the grip. He motions for the survivors to do the same, their faces a mix of fear and determination. They've all known the stakes, but now the time for hesitation is over. He scans the alley one more time. It's a confined space, perfect for the walkers to corner them. The group moves quickly to take cover behind the large dumpster that blocks part of the alley, huddling together in the small gap between it and the crumbling brick wall. Their only hope now is to make it through without attracting too much attention. The walkers' footsteps continue to grow louder as they shuffle closer. Ryan feels his pulse quicken, the sounds of the approaching threat rattling in his ears. But he forces himself to stay calm, to focus on the moment. His military training kicks in again, overriding the panic. It's a game of strategy now. "Listen to me," Ryan says, his voice firm, but steady. "We need to stay quiet. We wait for the right moment. If we stay silent, they might pass by. But if they get too close, we fight. Understand?" The survivors nod, fear clouding their eyes. They don't want to fight, they don't want to die, but in this world, there's no other option. Ryan's eyes scan the alley again, his body tensed for any movement. He grips his weapon tighter. The air is thick with silence, save for the shuffling of the walkers outside their hiding spot. His heart races as his breath becomes shallow. He forces himself to remain still, not even daring to breathe too loudly. The first walker appears in the narrow space between the dumpster and the wall, its jerky movements unmistakable. It's not fast, but it's relentless, and it's hungry. Ryan watches, barely breathing, as the creature shuffles forward. Then another appears behind it, and another, until the alley seems to be filling with the undead. They're close now, too close. Ryan's grip on his weapon tightens, his finger hovering over the trigger. He can hear the low, guttural groans of the walkers, their minds consumed by an insatiable hunger. The group is trapped. There's nowhere to run. Suddenly, the first walker pauses. Its head jerks to the side, and Ryan's heart skips a beat. Has it heard them? Has it smelled them? The walker tilts its head, sniffing the air as if sensing their presence. Then, slowly, it begins to shuffle forward, moving towards the alley's dead end. Ryan holds his breath, willing the walker to pass them by. His eyes flick to Claire, who is holding Emma close, trying to stay as silent as possible. Jacob's small hand clutches his mother's sleeve, his body trembling with fear. Ryan feels a wave of guilt wash over him. He never wanted them to be in this situation. He never wanted them to experience the horrors of this world. But then, as if guided by some invisible force, the walker passes them by. Its gaze doesn't linger on their hiding spot. Ryan's body relaxes for a split second, but he doesn't dare let his guard down. The walkers continue to shuffle past, their feet dragging along the ground, their faces expressionless but filled with an insatiable desire. It's not over yet. Ryan looks back at the survivors. They're all still holding their breath, praying they won't be seen. The tension in the alley is unbearable. The walkers seem to be endless, and every second they remain hidden is a small victory. But just as they think they're safe, a loud crash echoes from the other end of the alley. A piece of rubble, disturbed by a walker's foot, falls to the ground with a sharp noise. The walkers immediately turn toward the sound, their attention now focused on the noise. Ryan curses under his breath. It's a split-second decision. The walkers are too close. They can't wait any longer. Now! Ryan orders. In a blur of motion, he jumps from his hiding spot, raising his rifle and firing. The sound of the gunshot is deafening in the confined space, but it hits its mark. The first walker drops, its body falling with a sickening thud. But there are more, many more. The survivors scramble to their feet, grabbing whatever weapons they can find. They fight with desperation, knowing that their survival depends on their ability to push through. Each shot, each swing of a makeshift weapon, is a fight for their lives. The alley becomes a battleground, the tension unbearable as Ryan leads the charge. The walkers fall, one by one, but there are too many. The group is surrounded. The survivors fight with everything they have, but it's clear, this fight is far from over. The sound of gunfire echoes through the empty streets as the battle for survival rages on. Ryan's heart pounds in his chest as he fights to protect his family. The world outside is falling apart, but in this moment, his focus is clear: they will survive, no matter what. The noise of the battle reverberates in the narrow alley, a cacophony of gunshots, screams, and the sickening thuds of undead bodies hitting the ground. Ryan's breath comes in ragged gasps as he surveys the carnage. The walkers, once slow and disorganized, have become an unstoppable wave of destruction. Even with every weapon they have, guns, knives, pipes, Ryan knows they are outmatched. They fight because they have to, because the alternative is worse than death. Keep moving. Ryan yells, his voice cutting through the chaos. His eyes dart around, looking for an exit, something, anything, that will give them a chance to escape this nightmare. His pulse is racing, and his mind races with it. The alley is a trap. They can't stay here. They're sitting ducks. Claire is fighting beside him, holding a broken pipe she picked up from the street. Her face is hard with determination, but her eyes betray the exhaustion she's already feeling. The children are behind them, with a small group of survivors, desperately trying to stay out of sight, out of reach of the undead. The walkers are relentless, drawn to the sounds of the struggle. Every step they take toward safety is another step into the abyss. Ryan can see that the group is starting to falter. There's too much pressure on them. Too many walkers. Too few resources. One of the survivors, an older man named Steve, stumbles, his leg giving way as a walker lurches toward him. The man tries to crawl away, but the undead are already on him, their hands reaching for him with frightening speed. "Steve!" Claire cries out, but Ryan grabs her arm, pulling her back. "We can't help him, Claire." Ryan's voice is harsh, panicked. The group has already lost too much. There's no saving Steve. There's no saving anyone if they don't get out of here. Move! Move! Ryan roars, his voice a command, not a plea. His instincts are in overdrive. This is survival. There's no room for hesitation. The group stumbles backward, retreating deeper into the alley as more walkers flood in from the other end. The sound of their footsteps is deafening, there moans a haunting chorus of death. Ryan pulls Claire toward a narrow side street at the far end of the alley, forcing her to move faster, even as she glances back one last time at Steve's desperate struggle. It's over for him. Ryan's heart is heavy, the weight of that truth bearing down on him like a ton of bricks. But he can't let it consume him. He can't afford to feel for Steve when his family is still in danger. Keep it together. Ryan grits his teeth, urging his family and the other survivors to keep moving, to stay strong. They run, their footsteps echoing in the empty streets, every corner feeling like a trap. They are hunted. There's no safe place. No sanctuary. Every step is a gamble, a chance that the next turn will lead them into the arms of the undead. Ryan's mind is racing, calculating escape routes, risks, and worst-case scenarios. They pass through several blocks of abandoned homes, broken windows, and overgrown streets. The city, once a place of life and noise, is now a ghost town, decimated by the infected. The only movement in the streets comes from the walkers, aimless and prowling, their hunger insatiable. Ryan's eyes scan the horizon, looking for a place of refuge. A church, a store, a gas station, anything that might offer a brief respite. But every building they pass looks like another dead end. The world is collapsing around them, and the weight of it presses down harder with each step. Suddenly, Claire's voice breaks through his thoughts. "Ryan, look." Ryan turns toward her, his heart pounding in his chest. A large, old hospital building looms in the distance. Its windows are shattered, its once pristine exterior covered in grime and overgrowth. But it's big. And it's isolated. If there's any place left that could be safe, it's there. Ryan's pulse spikes. It's a long shot, but it's the best chance they've got. "That's our destination," Ryan says, pointing toward the hospital. "Move." But as they begin to make their way toward the building, they notice something unsettling. The streets are quiet. Too quiet. The distant sounds of walkers grow fainter. Ryan stops dead in his tracks. A gut feeling pulls at him, a cold sensation running down his spine. Something's wrong. Something's about to happen. "Stay sharp," he whispers, his voice low. Something's not right. The survivors hesitate, their eyes darting nervously from side to side. Emma clutches Claire's hand tightly, her face pale with fear. Jacob is still too young to understand, but his wide eyes reflect the fear all around him. The group moves cautiously, picking their way down the street, their every movement slow and deliberate. Ryan's senses are on high alert. He's used to this feeling, the moment before a trap is sprung. Then, from behind them, a loud, guttural roar cuts through the silence. The ground shakes as a massive horde of walkers bursts from an alleyway, pouring into the street like a tidal wave of flesh. Their eyes gleam with hunger, their arms flailing as they lurch forward. Ryan's heart races. They're surrounded. "There's no way around them," Ryan says, his voice strained. "We need to fight. Now." The group scrambles for cover as the first wave of walkers closes in. Ryan raises his weapon and opens fire. The sound of gunshots fills the air, deafening in the chaos. Claire and the others follow suit, fighting with everything they have. The battle is fierce, and the walkers show no mercy. Ryan's mind races as he fires, his eyes never leaving the horde. They are closing in, and time is running out. The hospital is close, but can they make it? Can they survive long enough to reach it? Every shot, every swing of a weapon, brings them closer to the edge. The air is thick with the smell of death, and Ryan knows that they are on the brink of losing everything. But they can't stop. Not now. Not yet. Keep fighting. Ryan screams, his voice full of determination. "We're almost there." With every ounce of energy left, they push forward, battling through the endless wave of undead. The hospital looms ahead, but will it be enough to save them? Or will they fall like so many before them, lost to the growing empire of the undead? Ryan doesn't know. But one thing is certain, the fight for survival is far from over. "You said." The sliding glass doors of St. Joseph's Memorial Hospital were shattered, the entryway covered in old blood stains and toppled gurneys. Ryan led the survivors inside cautiously, holding his crowbar at the ready. Claire stayed behind him, gripping Jacob's small hand while keeping Emma tucked close. The rest of the group followed, their faces pale with exhaustion and fear. The echoes of the battle still rang in their ears, and no one dared speak until they were past the front lobby. Inside, the hospital was dark and eerily silent. The fluorescent lights above flickered weakly, powered by some backup generator still humming somewhere deep in the building. Wheelchairs lay overturned in the hallways, 4 poles tipped over, medical carts rusting in place. Every sound echoed, every footstep, every breath, making the hospital feel vast and haunted. "Stay close," Ryan whispered, motioning toward the stairwell. "We can't trust the elevators." They moved through the halls like ghosts, passing rooms filled with overturned beds and shattered equipment. Medical charts were scattered on the floor like fallen leaves, some marked with disturbing red X's. Emma kept her eyes averted, and Claire clutched her tighter with every door they passed. "Top floors might still be clear," said Carlos, a former EMT who had joined their group back in the city. He was younger than Ryan, but his knowledge of hospitals made him invaluable. The infection spread from the ER, so it probably didn't go all the way up before it was sealed off. "Let's check the 6th floor," Ryan nodded. "We need space. We need time." They climbed the stairwell, floor by floor, stepping over dried blood and the occasional husk of a fallen infected. By the time they reached the 6th floor, everyone was sweating and panting. Ryan forced the stairwell door open slowly and peeked through. The hallway beyond was dim, but quiet. No movement. No sounds. "It's clear," he said softly. "Let's set up here for now." They began securing the area. Ryan and Carlos barricaded the stairwell door with a hospital bed while Claire and another survivor, Naomi, scouted nearby rooms for supplies. A small nurse's lounge became their temporary base. It had vending machines, a couch, and, miraculously, a functioning water cooler. For the first time in days, they allowed themselves to rest. Claire helped the kids sit down and eat from whatever snacks they could scavenge. Ryan stood by the window, watching the darkening city below. Fires burned in the distance, and the streets were crawling with shadows. "We need a plan," he said quietly to Carlos, who stood beside him. "We need information first," Carlos replied. "If this hospital still has working equipment, computers, radios, we might find out where the nearest evacuation zone is. If there even is one." Claire approached, overhearing. "If we could get a message out, maybe there are others. Maybe help." Ryan looked at her, his expression tight. "Maybe. Or maybe we're all that's left." The night passed with shifts on watch. Every creak in the building sent a jolt through them. But the floor remained silent. The walkers hadn't followed them this far up. Not yet. In the morning, they explored further, checking supply closets and sealed wings. One wing, marked, "Quarantine, do not enter," was chained shut. A fresh smear of blood on the door made Ryan's gut twist. "We're not opening that," he said firmly, leading the group away. Carlos found a working terminal in the old records room. He powered it with a spare battery from a medical cart and began sifting through files. What he discovered chilled everyone. The hospital had once been a government shelter in the early days of the outbreak. A last-ditch effort to study the virus, and test cures. There was a team of doctors here, Carlos explained. They tried to create a suppressant. Something that wouldn't reverse the infection, but slow it. Buy time. Did it work? Claire asked, hopeful. Carlos shook his head slowly. Some people survived longer, but most just became more aggressive. Unstable. Ryan leaned over the screen. So what happened to the team? Carlos hesitated. The last logs are desperate. One doctor, Dr. Voss, sent a final message to a military base up north. She claimed she had a prototype dose, something promising. But it never got out. Claire's eyes widened. What if it's still here? Ryan's instincts screamed against it. Whatever was in this hospital's past had been locked away for a reason. But if there was even a chance at a cure, or hope, it was worth the risk. Carlos nodded. The logs say the lab's on the sublevels. But they locked it down before everything collapsed. Ryan looked around at the exhausted survivors. We rest tonight. Then tomorrow, we go downstairs. Unseen by them, down in the quarantine wing, movement stirred. A hand twitched. A low growl echoed softly behind the chained door. Something hadn't died. It had waited. You said. At sunrise, the survivors gathered in the nurses' lounge, grim-faced and quiet. The discovery of the secret lab had stirred something in them, a fragile mixture of hope and dread. The possibility of a suppressant, even one that had only partially worked, was enough to ignite determination in their tired eyes. Ryan took a long breath and looked over the group. We don't know what's down there. But if there's even a chance we can find that prototype, we have to try. Carlos nodded, checking the map he'd printed from the terminal. Sublevel 2. There's a service elevator in the west wing. We'll need to override the lockdown manually from the maintenance room on this floor. Claire glanced toward the children, who sat nearby under Naomi's watch. Are you sure about this? What if the lab is full of those things? Then we seal it off again, Ryan replied. But we can't keep running forever. If there's anything that gives us an edge, something to fight back, we have to get it. The team split into two groups. Carlos and Naomi moved to the maintenance room to bypass the elevator locks while Ryan, Claire, and two others, Marcus and Joe, headed to scout the west wing. The long corridors felt colder now, as if the hospital itself knew what they were planning. Emergency lights flickered overhead, painting the hallway in a pulsing red hue. In the maintenance room, Carlos worked quickly, his fingers flying across the controls. Naomi kept watch at the door, her ears alert for any sign of movement. After several tense minutes, the control panel beeped, and a green light blinked on. Got it, Carlos said. Elevator access is live. In the west wing, Ryan pried open the elevator doors. The car itself was stuck one floor below, but a maintenance ladder offered a way down. He tested the rungs, then motioned to the others. We go one at a time. Stay quiet. One by one, they descended into the sublevels. The air grew colder as they dropped below the hospital's main infrastructure. Pipes hissed above them, and the dim emergency lighting gave everything a rusty, decayed appearance. When they reached the bottom, the air smelled of chemicals and mold. Sublevel 2 was unlike the rest of the hospital. This wasn't meant for patients. It was clinical, sterile, isolated. Thick steel doors lined the hall, each marked with numbers and hazard warnings. Some were scorched, others dented from the inside. Welcome to the lab, Carlos whispered, his voice barely audible. As they moved deeper, they found signs of a hasty evacuation. Papers were scattered, chairs overturned, glass shattered across the floor. A fire had blackened one hallway, and a skeletal figure in a lab coat sat slumped against a door, a syringe still clutched in his hand. Claire knelt beside the body and read the ID badge. Dr. Emil Voss. Carlos's eyes widened. He's the one from the logs. Ryan pried open the door behind the body. Inside, the room was still intact. Computers hummed softly, powered by a backup generator. Locked cabinets lined the walls, and a cryogenic freezer sat humming in the corner. Carlos rushed to the computer and began scanning the files. He uploaded everything before he died. Notes, test results, even video logs. Ryan and Claire opened the freezer. Inside were several vials, carefully packed in foam. One was labeled VX-S2, active prototype. "This is it," Claire whispered. Carlos looked up. According to his notes, this dose can delay the transformation for days. Maybe weeks. If we replicate it. A deep, inhuman growl cut through the silence. Everyone froze. It came again, closer now. Something heavy scraped across the floor outside the lab. "We're not alone," Ryan said. Jo moved to the door, peeking through the window. Her breath caught. "It's not a normal walker," she whispered. "It's different." The creature lumbered into view, taller than a human, skin twisted and stretched, patches of armor-like tissue bulging from its body. Its eyes glowed faintly in the red light, and a long tongue flicked out from between sharp, uneven teeth. "A mutation," Carlos muttered. "It was tested on. Exposed to the prototype. It didn't slow the virus. It changed it." The mutated walker stopped in front of the lab door, sniffing the air. Then it let out a howl, loud enough to shake the walls. Ryan locked the door's deadbolt. "We're trapped." Claire turned to Carlos. "Can we escape another way?" "There's a security tunnel connecting to the old morgue," Carlos said. "It's risky, but it's our only shot." Ryan grabbed the prototype vial and packed it into his backpack. "Then we fight our way out. We didn't come this far to die here." The mutated walker slammed against the door, hard enough to dent the frame. And so began the race through the shadows of the lab, where every turn held death, and the only way out was through a maze of nightmares. The mutated creature slammed against the lab door again, this time harder. Dust fell from the ceiling tiles, and the walls groaned under the pressure. The group inside felt each impact like a countdown. They didn't have long. Ryan tightened the straps on his backpack, making sure the prototype vial was secure. "We move. Now." Carlos grabbed a printed map from the lab's desk. "The security tunnel runs behind the refrigeration units. If we make it to the morgue, there's an old service hatch that leads to the street." Jo and Marcus took point. Claire followed with Emma and Jacob, both children pressed close to her sides, too afraid to cry. Naomi stayed at the rear, her hunting knife ready. The lab door creaked and cracked behind them as they slipped out a side emergency exit. Ryan slammed the door shut and used a fire extinguisher to block it. It wouldn't hold long. They entered the tunnel, narrow, metallic, and cold. The walls dripped with condensation, and the only light came from emergency bulbs spaced far apart, leaving much of the passage in darkness. Every step echoed, every breath sounded too loud. "Keep quiet," Ryan whispered. "We don't know if it's alone." The tunnel twisted and turned, sloping slightly downward. Pipes ran along the ceiling, some leaking steam, others groaning under pressure. Occasionally, they passed storage rooms with reinforced doors long since bent open, the contents looted or decayed. Claire kept the kids close, whispering calming words, though her own heart raced with dread. The thought of getting caught down here, with that thing chasing them, was unbearable. Suddenly, a distant metallic clang rang out behind them. Everyone froze. Then another clang, closer. "It's following," Naomi said under her breath. "That thing, it's tracking us." Carlos scanned the map with shaking hands. "There's a maintenance hatch up ahead. If we cut through the old furnace room, we might lose it." Ryan nodded. "Move fast. No mistakes." They ran. The furnace room was a rusting metal chamber filled with outdated boilers and tanks. It was pitch dark save for the dull orange glow of a flickering bulb. Shadows danced on the walls, and the air smelled of oil and old smoke. Joe climbed over a fallen pipe, helping Claire and the children through a narrow space. Just as Naomi was squeezing through, a sound stopped them cold. A growl, low and guttural, came from behind one of the boilers. Then, something moved. The mutated walker leapt from the shadows, its grotesque limbs pushing off the walls like a monstrous spider. Naomi reacted instantly, slashing at its arm with her blade, but it barely flinched. Ryan lunged, swinging his crowbar into its side, sending it crashing into a rusted tank with a screech of metal. "Go!" he shouted. The group ran for the far hatch, Carlos yanking the lock open with trembling hands. Claire shoved the kids through first, followed by Marcus and Joe. Naomi backed toward the hatch, keeping her eyes on the beast. It snarled and lunged again. Carlos hit a valve on one of the tanks. Steam hissed loudly, engulfing the room in a thick cloud. The creature paused, disoriented. Naomi used the moment to escape, diving through the hatch just as Ryan slammed it shut behind them. He twisted the locking wheel, sealing it tight. For now. They stood in a cold, silent corridor, the morgue. The air was heavy with the smell of formaldehyde and dust. Body drawers lined the walls, many of them open, empty. Some had been forced open from the inside. "We keep moving," Ryan said, voice low. "This place isn't safe either." Carlos pointed ahead. "Exits just beyond the next room. A ladder to the surface." They stepped into the final chamber of the morgue, the autopsy room. It had been ransacked, but strangely, no signs of a struggle. Just silence. Claire suddenly stopped. "Where's Marcus?" Everyone turned. He wasn't with them. "Marcus!" Joe called, her voice shaking. Back in the tunnel, something heavy banged against the sealed hatch. Ryan cursed. "We don't have time." Claire shook her head. "We can't leave him." Before they could decide, the hatch exploded inward, metal flying. The mutated walker stormed in, dragging Marcus's limp body in its claws. It had followed them. And it wasn't alone. Behind it, more shadows emerged from the furnace tunnel, faster, leaner creatures, partially mutated. Experiment survivors. Carlos screamed, "Run!" They bolted for the ladder, Ryan helping Claire lift the kids up first. Joe covered them, firing her last few bullets at the advancing horrors. Naomi slashed at a charging creature, her arm catching a deep gash in the process. One by one, they climbed to the surface. Carlos. The last rays of the setting sun cast eerie shadows across the ruined city as Ryan, Claire, Naomi, Carlos, Joe, and the two terrified children emerged from the storm drain onto the abandoned street. The chaos below was behind them, for now, but the silence above wasn't comforting. It was the kind of silence that came after devastation, a breath before the next storm. Ryan looked toward the horizon, where the high-rise rooftop of the Havenfield Emergency Broadcast Tower stood tall. Their only hope of transmitting the cure prototype to the remaining survivors, or even government remnants, lay inside. "We go to the tower," he said. "We make it count." They moved swiftly through broken streets littered with overturned cars and the bones of earlier resistance. Distant moans echoed from alleys and crumbled buildings. The horde was near. Carlos led them to the base of the tower. Its doors were locked, rusted, and chained shut. Joe used a discarded fire axe to wedge through while Claire kept the children sheltered behind a newspaper kiosk. Naomi leaned against a wall, clutching her wounded arm. The gash was getting worse. Inside, they found a stairwell coated in dust and dried handprints. The power was long gone, the elevator useless. Floor after floor, they climbed. At each landing, they passed signs of panic, barricades, forgotten supplies, blood smears. Halfway up, Ryan slowed. He pulled the vial from his coat, checking the glass. Still intact. Joe looked over. You think it'll work? Ryan didn't answer immediately. It's not perfect. But it might stop the mutation from spreading further. Maybe even reverse the early stages. Claire looked at Emma, then Jacob. That's enough of a reason to try. A crash rang out from below. They weren't alone. The mutated horrors had followed them. Faster than expected. Move! Naomi shouted, ignoring the pain in her arm as they ran the last 3 flights. On the roof, the city stretched endlessly below, dark, broken, and swarming with infected. Carlos ran to the emergency antenna box. It's still here. Battery-powered, short-range broadcast, I can patch in the file. Ryan handed him the USB drive with the decoded cure data. Do it fast. Joe and Naomi took up positions by the stairwell exit, ready to hold off the creatures. Claire hugged the kids close, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. The stairwell door exploded inward. The mutated lead creature burst through, its grotesque form even larger now, flesh bubbling, eyes blood-red with intelligence. It wasn't just hunting, it remembered them. Joe fired her shotgun. Naomi slashed wildly. Still it came. Ryan rushed to help, slamming a metal pipe into the beast's back. Joe was thrown aside like a doll. Naomi screamed as claws tore into her side. Carlos shouted from the antenna box, upload at 60%. Just hold it a little longer. Claire handed Jacob to Emma. Stay here. No matter what. Then she ran to help Naomi, grabbing a fallen pipe and striking the creature's leg with all her strength. Ryan locked eyes with the beast. Come on, then, he growled. The creature lunged, and Ryan tackled it, dragging it away from the others. The two slammed into the railing near the edge of the roof. Carlos screamed, "It's done." The cure's broadcasted. The creature swiped at Ryan's chest, tearing through his coat, breaking glass. The vial. It shattered. Ryan gasped, clutching the remains. Then, in a final moment of clarity, he grabbed a shard of the vial, coated in the formula, and stabbed it directly into the creature's neck. The beast howled. Steam rose from its veins. It staggered, mutating further, then stumbled back. And fell off the roof, taking Ryan with it. Claire screamed. Naomi crawled to the edge, sobbing. He did it. Carlos slowly stood, the transmission console sparking. Signals out. If there's anyone left, they'll know. They'll have a chance. Joe helped Naomi up. We survive. For him. For all of them. Claire pulled the children into her arms. They looked up at her, eyes wide, frightened, but alive. Above, the sky turned from red to soft violet. Below, the creatures howled. But the first step to hope had been made. The rooftop survivors stood together, tired, wounded, grieving, but not broken. Not yet.